Hi guys, it's Sam and this is my October wrap-up. I only read 6 books in October, which isn't super bad obviously, but I also just got sucked into Dragon Age hell during October, where I'm still currently residing and will continue to reside probably for the next couple of months or maybe just weeks while I play Dragon Age Inquisition, so it's not my fault. The first book that I read this month was The Lovely Reckless by Cami Garcia. I did receive an arc of this book before it came out because I interviewed Cami at Boston Book Festival, but this book has since been released. This is a YA contemporary about Frankie, who is a girl that lost her boyfriend a few months ago in a tragic accident and since then has been living a very reckless life. So after having a couple of accidents and mess-ups, she ends up going and living with her father, who is an undercover cop in the bad part of town. And she ends up going to a new high school and falling for a local street racer. I had super high hopes for this book. I am somebody who loves early 2000s movies tropes and also really loves like street racing tropes and stuff. I don't really see a lot of it, but I used to love like the Need for Speed games growing up, and I used to love like Fast and the Furious and stuff like that. So I was completely ready to eat this book up. And the first part of the book, like, I didn't really mind. Like, I was ready for super trope, like, give it to me. But a lot of stuff ended up happening that was just super tropey, super predictable. I didn't like the romance. Like, there was just a lot that just piled on top, like, to the point where I started just predicting lines that were going to be said because they were that tropey. So I ended up not liking this book and giving it 1 out of 5 stars. The next book that I picked up was The Dark Wife by S.E. Dimer. I've already done a full review on this book, but it is a lesbian Hades and Persephone retelling. I enjoyed it for the most part. I'm still looking for like my ultimate Hades and Persephone retelling. Like, that's my current goal for life, so that I can recommend it to everybody when they ask me for recommendations. So I have like the, you know, like this is the A-level ultimate, every book should aspire to be this kind of Hades Persephone retelling. And this one isn't quite that, but I did really enjoy it. It's a fairly short book, so I didn't feel like we got into a ton of like character development and stuff, but I, for the most part, really enjoyed how Hades was written. I thought that Hades' characterization was really good and really on point because I like that type of characterization of Hades, and I thought the Persephone was pretty good as well. Not quite as like fiery and savage as I tend to like seeing, but I enjoyed it. I also liked seeing this kind of underworld. It is a pretty typical retelling, like all the characters' names are the same and the underworld is kind of how we picture the underworld and stuff, and I do tend to prefer a different, more creative underworld typically. That's just my thing, but overall I enjoyed this, and this is a less angsty Hades Persephone retelling, and it's more of a like sweet, happier Hades Persephone retelling. So if you're looking for less angst, this one might be for you. I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. I then picked up Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I've already done a full review and gush on this one as well, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail with this one. Most people already also know the synopsis for this. It's a YA urban fantasy series that follows the main character of Karou, who is a bit of an unusual girl, and she collects teeth for a mysterious character named Brimstone, and everything kind of takes off when handprints start appearing on Brimstone's door into his shop. So I ended up adoring this book. I put this book off for a very long time, and I'm still not quite sure why I put it off for so long, because I knew I was going to love her writing, and this book just speaks to me on a lot of levels, and I loved so many things about it. I loved the characters, I loved the world, I loved the writing, I loved the plot, I love some of the things that are done with it, I love the themes, like everything. And I did end up giving this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. It should almost be, like, there's a little tiny bit that's making it like 4.5. It's really like more 4.75. Like, it's still a book that I highly recommend, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the series. It just didn't quite make it to 5 stars for me. I'm being a little more strict with my 5-star reviews lately and my 5-star books, so this didn't quite hit 5 stars, but like so close. I'm still thinking about this book a lot, and like I want to read the series as quickly as possible, but I also want to like hold on to it and not like just marathon through it because I want as much time with these characters as possible. I then picked up Shadow Shaper by Danielle Jose Older. This is a YA urban fantasy as well that follows our main character of Sierra, and she lives in Brooklyn and she is an artist, and one day when she's painting a mural in her neighborhood, she discovers that one of the other murals is acting strangely and crying and appears to be animated. And there's also some weird things that are happening with her grandfather, who recently had a stroke, and he keeps saying weird things, and just a lot of weird things start happening, and she starts discovering this world of Shadow Shapers, which is a unique kind of magic that infuses ancestral spirits with art and everything kind of takes off from there. I enjoyed this book, but I had done a full review on this where I go into more detail about it, but I really feel like this book wasn't quite long enough. It didn't have enough room to grow. There's so much potential for so many things in here, and there's so many great things that are done in this book. And Danny Jose Older goes into a lot of things, like different themes, as far as not just being about like magic, but also talking about like racism and sexism and gentrification and all this stuff in this short book. But then there are some things that are just kind of lacking, like I don't quite understand the magic system and how it works, because there's things that happen as a result of the magic, and I don't quite get the ramifications of that and like how the magic works and why it does those things. And there's also a lot of side characters that I don't feel like were fleshed out. They're pretty one-dimensional, and I just felt like I was at a distance from this book for a lot of reading it, because I just didn't feel like I was going deep enough with them, and I just feel like it didn't have enough time to grow. But I really liked what the story did, and I really liked the potential the story had, so I'm hoping in future books that it goes a little deeper, but I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. I then picked up Carve the Mark by Veronica Roth. This early copy was sent to me by HarperCollins, and I am doing a review coming up on Monday for this book, so I will share more of my thoughts there. I can't talk a ton about this book because there are really strict embargoes on this book being sent out. Like, we couldn't take pictures of the pages, we can't send this to anybody, none of our friends can read it. Like, the people who got this book have very strict rules about it, so I can't talk about it in super detail. But this is the first book in Veronica Roth's new YA duology. It's set in a mix of like sci-fi fantasy world, and it follows two main characters. One is Akos, who is from a peace-loving nation of Thuv, and he ends up getting kidnapped by a hostile rival nation, the Stotet people, and everything kind of takes off from there with him. And then we have our other main character of Thera, and she is from that Stotet nation, and she is just in a very brutal society, and she has a unique gift that involves inflicting pain, and her and Akos come in contact, and everything kind of takes off from there. Like I said, I have a full review coming up talking about this, but the big thing with this is I felt the world building was super messy and lackluster. There's a lot of things I don't really quite understand about it. There are things called current gifts in this, where the current, which is kind of, from what I'm gathering, this like magical sort of energy that's in this particular galaxy, and I'm pretty sure this galaxy is not at all related to our galaxy, but again, I'm not really sure because of the world building. So the world building elements of this book were just really confusing, which made the plot kind of confusing because the world building is tied into the plot. So I liked the characters of this book, though. I really liked Thera as a main character. If you like characters that I like that are more morally gray and more brutal and more savage, you're going to enjoy her, who kind of sometimes will act before they think. Those kinds of characters, that's what I really liked about her. And I liked Akos as well, just not as much as Thera. And then I also had the problem of like some of these side characters not quite being fleshed out, but our main characters I really enjoyed, and the brutality of them and the morally grayness of them and stuff like that. But I do think some other elements about the story were a little lackluster. So for most of the story when I was reading it, I was thinking it was going to set about 2.5 stars, but the end kind of made up for that, answered some of my questions, kind of got the ball rolling in a direction where I felt like we were going to get more answers, because obviously this is a duology, so it has to wrap up in the next book. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. And lastly, for my Halloween read, I ended up picking up This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. Now, Victoria Schwab for me has been a very hit and miss author. Like, I either love her books or I don't like them, I'm disappointed by them. So I loved The Archived. And then I didn't really like A Darker Shade of Magic. I do kind of want to continue with that series, but I'm not sure. So I don't know if I just don't like her adult books as much, since the YA ones so far have been huge hits for me. So saying that, obviously I really enjoyed this book. This book takes place in a future Earth, kind of almost dystopian, but doesn't have that dystopian feel to it, in which people's actions make monsters manifest. So actual physical monsters are created by people's actions and violence. So like certain monsters are created just by like assaults and like physical violence but no death, and then there's certain monsters that are created by actual murders, and then there's monsters that are created by really tragic events like mass shootings, bombing, stuff like that. So it's a really interesting story, especially for our current times and just all the mass shootings that we have in America and stuff like that. It's so relevant, and it just is like, what would happen if like these acts of violence create physical monsters? Like, it's such a cool idea, and it's done so well in here. Like, Victoria Schwab is really great at dual perspectives, and there are 2 different perspectives in here. One is of a human girl who is kind of part of the criminal element of this world. She is actually the daughter of one of the leaders of this society, but obviously the society is very kind of messed up, so her dad is kind of messed up. And her name is Kate, and then we have August, who is a monster boy, and everything, they kind of come in contact and stuff, and everything kind of takes off from there. But this is such a good book. Like, I read this, I think in about 2 days and about 2 sittings, and I just adored it. I love E. Schwab's writing. That's the one thing that I do always love about her books, is I love her writing. Sometimes I feel like plots and pacing can get a little messed up with her books, but her YA so far for me has always been consistent, and I just really enjoyed this. Like, there's so many things that are explored. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the series. I believe it's just a duology. I'm already looking forward to the next book though. Like, oh my gosh. And Kate as the main character is so great. Like, they both are so great. August and Kate I love equally for different reasons. They both go through a ton of character development just in this book, especially August, but Kate as well. Victoria Schwab does such a good job of writing just brutal female characters. Like, she does have a habit of saying that her female characters are always going to be more savage than her male characters. Like, that's just how it is, and that obviously speaks to me, and I just love both of them so much. Like, the whole idea is so cool. The monster elements are really cool. And I just have a lot of feelings about it, and I'm going to be doing a full review and gush on this book and talking about it in depth because I loved it. So those are all the books that I picked up in October. Comment down below and let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. So thank you all for watching. I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!